So a brief little check-in as you're dropping your name. Drop one word in the chat that describes how you're feeling about this summer. Winemo, how are you feeling about this summer?
I am trying to grasp, I don't have one word, but I have a sentence. I'm
Okay.
trying to grasp onto every little like morsel of August that I have left.
Yeah, I saw in the store the other day that they were like putting up all the Halloween stuff, and I was like, October?
I'm not
What are
ready.
I'm not ready either. I my one word in the chat, well, not in the chat, but chatted is is rest. I feel very well rested
Hmm.
this summer. Like just keeping a nice even pace to my days. I feel a little bit rejuvenated too
Mhm.
because of that. So go ahead and tell us what you're feeling, what your one word is that describes how you're feeling about this summer. We want to hear from you. All right. And then let's just get to the things because we don't have a lot of time together. My name is Dr. Crystal Martin. Um, I am joined here with,
I'm Dr. Wanamo Okoye.
and we are both from the Institute of Healing and Belonging in Schools at NYU Metro Center. The Institute is a new center. Winemo is our director, and we'll definitely make space, Winemo, for kind of allowing you to tell us about the vision behind the Institute. But here on our slide and with these lovely pictures, look at what, if you could only see Winemo smile, if you can zoom in, such a great picture. Um, our mission and vision at the Institute, or our vision, is a future where schools are centers of belonging and vehicles of upward mobility for Black and Brown youth. We are grounded in research and we partner with schools and districts to cultivate environments where every student receives what they need to develop their full academic and social potential. And the Summer Institute that is coming up this summer, or our Summer Innovation Lab, is a new endeavor that we are doing with the Institute that brings together both healing-centered practices, culturally responsive practices, and freedom dreaming, which we'll talk more about in this particular session. Winemo, do you want to share any more about that?
No, just that, Crystal and I have come up with this concept of the Institute together. It's very much a shared vision of when we were in schools. And so we didn't really introduce ourselves, but I was a classroom teacher turned public health education practitioner researcher. Crystal is a school counselor, community psychologist. Both of us are advocates for Black and Brown young people, and have found that in our work, in our research, that unless young people and the adults that take care of them feel as though they can heal from their trauma and as though they belong, not despite their identities, but because of them, that schools cannot be places that cultivate learning and growth for their ultimate potential. So we're just excited to be able to do this work. And something that Crystal has brought to this work is the infusion of freedom dreaming, and it's become really core to the way that we do work. So I'm excited for us to talk about that here today.
Thank you, Winemo. You all also should know that I am a Gemini, and apparently Winemo is the other half of my twin, because this slide was supposed to be about intros. Thanks to Winemo for remembering that that's what this was supposed to be about. But thank you, Winemo, for giving even that introduction for. All right. So we're just gonna get right into the meat and bones of it. There's some artwork throughout this presentation that is very near to me, near and dear to me. It's on the front slide. The very first slide said that this presentation includes artwork from an artist called Hebrew Brantley, who is from the South Side of Chicago, and he uses a lot of imagery of childlike superheroes. His work is really rooted and grounded in radical imagination, and these kids who are very Black and brown in these very heroic like configurations and images. And this slide, I feel like it's important to name this piece of work by Hebrew Brantley because this image of this little girl always does something for me. in particular as it relates to healing-centered practices and freedom dreaming. Because if you look at the image here, she's very much dressed like Wonder Woman, right? You see the crown, and it instantly makes you think of Wonder Woman. But she's not holding a sword and a shield, she's holding flowers. And that is kind of my emotion behind how, or not my emotion, but how I think healing-centered practices and freedom dreaming come together. Is that while you're resting, I said that my word for this summer is rest. And I know many of us have responded to the call to rest in this social political climate. While we're resting, you need to dream. And after you get done dreaming, there needs to be some sort of revival. And I feel like many of us are in a stage right now, present day, where we're thinking about what comes after all of this. Where are we trying to get to? And what do we want things to look like? And while we're thinking of all of the possibilities, we still have a job to do every day, to go in front of students, to present as our best selves, get children to learn despite the circumstances and despite very limited resources. And so the call to dream on the clock is to very much be grounded in what is happening, but not to escape from it, but think about where we want to get ourselves when we're on the other side of it. And so, as the slide says, to dream on the clock means to engage in radical imagination or visioning or freedom dreaming during work hours or within professional spaces, especially those traditionally focused on productivity, compliance, and efficiency. Our professional learning spaces are often just that. They leave very little room, space for reflection or deep reflection, or even the opportunity to create, to co create, to create in community, to dream in community. And that's what our Summer Innovation Lab is. Winemo, do you want to say anything more to that? I'm
No,
going to keep
just
doing this to you, FYI.
just that I taught seventh grade, so there's really nothing you can do to throw me off. Just that I have been really welcoming this idea since you introduced it to me of dreaming on the clock, because I think that it's really integral to our work that, we grow up being taught not to daydream in school. And here you are kind of introducing something counter to this and telling us to dream, to daydream, right? To dream while we have the energy to, while we are doing really wonderful, empowering work. And so it is critical to our young people in our schools, not to think about dreaming as a way to escape, but as a way to infuse our dreams into the work. We exist because of our dreams, because of our ancestors' wildest dreams, and our young people's futures exist because we make the space to dream. And so that's really what we're building, is space to dream during the workday, during the school day, when it matters the most.
For sure. So something that I didn't say, thank you, Winemo. Winemo always talks about me too, because I'm very uncomfortable with like silent pauses. So I rush right into my next statement. I'm practicing it, Winemo. I really am.
By filling this space
I'm
with words.
filling this space with my voice even more.
Oh, okay.
So and now I completely forgot what I was about to say. So I won't even do it now. Chaotic. Okay, so let me just go ahead to the next slide. Before we really get into this grounding exercise that we want you to follow, that Winemo is going to lead with her very therapeutic voice, is the importance of dreaming during high pressure situations. There's a lot of research around freedom dreaming, what it is. There are a lot of liberatory practitioners and writers and artists who talk about the necessity of dreaming in particular during times of crisis. And during our Summer Innovation Lab, you'll learn more about the history and the context of freedom dreaming, where it stems from, the research that supports and backs it as a practice that really brings about transformation. Um, if this concept sounds foreign to you, I remembered my statement that I said when I filled the space. It just came back to me. If this concept sounds foreign to you, something that I didn't include in my introduction is that before I worked in schools, I worked in television. I worked in very creative spaces. And something that always existed within those spaces was the time to co-collaborate, to generate ideas, to see where we were going to take the work, to identify what our next big project was. And it was always done in collective. It was always very inspiring. It always gave everyone a piece of the pie, right? Everyone had agency and a voice in the space to create and to dream. And then when I transitioned to schools, much of the information that was giving about how school would run, how it would function, would be disseminated down instead of across. And so, as we invite you into this space, it really is a merger of those two things of creative spaces. These things exist in companies like Google and Uber, where their executives spend time. We hear about Disney all the time in this way too. Their executives spend time co-creating. And one place we don't do it is in schools or for education. And so this space in the Summer Innovation Lab is a time and opportunity to do this with other practitioners and school leaders. And so before we talk more about what freedom dreaming is as a concept and where it comes from, we're going to talk a little bit about what it feels like by working through a grounding exercise. Winimo, I'm going on mute.
Thanks for the setup. You can actually stop sharing screen for a moment. Thank you. So, a huge part of my ability to dream has been in embodiment and through guided meditation. So I'm going to guide you all through a guided imagery that allow you to kind of settle into this space, but also to set you up for what we're about to talk about for the rest of our time here together. So before you begin, just take a moment to notice where you are. Make sure if you're able to put both of your feet flat on the ground. You may want to pull your shoulders up towards your ears and drop them down lightly. You can either close your eyes or lower them to your lap or the table in front of you, if there is one, the floor, if you're not seated at a desk. And go ahead and take the deepest breath you've taken all day, breathing in through your nose. Take an extra sip of breath when you get to the top and exhale. Take another deep breath, just like that. Notice where you are. Exhale. Notice where you are in your body, in your mind, in your day. Let your breath come in and return to its normal pace. No need to change it. You're stepping into a space that is meant to open, not close. A space of certainty, not of certainty, but of possibility. This is not a PD in the usual sense. It is not about toolkits or checklists or fixing what's broken. This is about reawakening the part of you that remembers how to imagine under pressure. The part that once asked big questions. The part that still dreams, even when the system says, be realistic. You may have recently responded to the call to rest. And what do we do while resting? We dream. And after dreaming, there must be revival. You are here because something in you remembers. Remembers what we build in schools must first exist in our imagination. Logic alone cannot carry us where we need to go. And sometimes the most radical thing an educator can do is dream out loud. For the next few minutes of our time together, we ask you to loosen your grip on outcomes, on constraints, on what is realistic. Instead, grip onto curiosity, grip onto wonder, grip onto what's possible. This is a journey in your stretch zone, not in your panic zone. You may feel friction. That is part of change. You may feel doubt, that part of dreaming. You don't need to know where this is going. You'll only need to be willing to go. Let's begin. Not by solving, not by sensing, not by answering, but by asking. Let your imagination have the first word. Let's close with one collective deep breath in through your nose. Extra deep breath and exhale. And let's dream.
Thank you, Winemo. If you can, let us know how it feels to start off that way. You can tell us right there in the chat. All right, and let me get my screen back. All right, I really wish I could read those visualizations like you do, Winemo. It never works out. I just have too much energy. Something's up with that. All right. So now that we have had a little bit of a taste of what freedom dreaming feels like, let's give you just a little bit of context of where freedom dreaming comes from. So the term freedom dreaming is a term that's coined by a historian named Robert DG Kelley. And according to Robin DG Kelley, any revolution must begin with thought, with how we imagine a new world, with how we reconstruct our social and individual relationships, with unleashing our desire and unfolding a new future on the basis of love and creativity rather than rationality. And I'll point your attention to the two circled phrases at the bottom, that reform believes that we must alter the systems that we have, but revolution believes we must imagine completely different systems. And so a lot of times what we do when we find ourselves in spaces that are centered around concepts of equity and justice and change and transformation is we're still looking at the problems from within the system, right? We know that we can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools, right? And so freedom dreaming asks us to imagine, what tools do we need to completely reconstruct a new home, a new place to live, and a new place to operate, a new place to do the work that we do to service children, Black and Brown children, every day. Freedom dreaming is a practice, and as a part of the Summer Innovation Lab, we will help you explore how to build those structures into the work that you already use and how to build in spaces where your students can dream also. Winema, would you like to share anything on that?
Just that I think one of the things that gets lost oftentimes in education is the need for the reflective process that as educators, we need to be doing what we're asking young people to do. And there's a person that I did a PD with recently who said, you know what I've been thinking about so often is that the way that our schools are constructed is that we're constantly snatching our little babies out of their dreams. And I like that statement gave me chills, is that all of us were struck by the fact that we're like taking young people out of the space to dream, but we're not building in the space to do that ourselves. And so that we should be constructing schools to create these parallel processes for us as educators and learners, as well as for young people and learners, and that those spaces for young people to dream need to reflect the spaces that we as adults have to dream in schools as well.
Thank you for sharing that, Winema. One of our speakers at the Summer Innovation Lab often talks about how we're all born creative, yet we start to think that creativity translates to art, right? Like when we think of creativity, we think of artistic spaces, but a policy writer is in every sense of the word creative. Someone who leads teams has to be creative with the way that they communicate, with the way that they share information, with the way that they disseminate a vision amongst their team. And so we want to get educators back to this space within them that may not identify as being artsy. I happen to be a person who's pretty, you look at my wall behind me, I'm a pretty artsy person. So to connect my identity with the word creative or creativity is very natural for me. But as we share some of this freedom dreaming work and radical imagination work, what I often encounter from educators is, oh, well, I'm not creative, because the only thing we think creativity means in education is like designing our bulletin boards. Like I couldn't, I am creative and I couldn't stand doing that when I was in school. So the Innovation Lab is a space to help rejuvenate the creativity that existed within you when you could be handed a box and construct it or turn it into a house or a car as a child, right? You'd reimagine everyday things and new usages for them. Children do it every day. And so to include the imagination of children and infuse it into our work is a strategy that you'll learn as a part of engaging with the Innovation Lab. All right. And so why now? The best time is right now. This first bullet points out that in times of crisis, imagination is resisted. At a time when you may not feel safe going out and being on the picket lines or going out and protesting or really putting up kind of outward displays of, you may not feel safe using certain types of terms, words, or identifying with things that have to do with equity because they're under siege right now. That's just the reality of it, right? Your imagination is one of the ways that you can offer resistance and a way that you can help create change when the opportunity presents itself. So what we want to do right now is really kind of garner the ideas of those educators who are in our space and help give you a strategy and a plan for how to execute those ideas with few or limited resources. Pressure reveals what's broken and what's possible. And so, a lot of times we find historically that we're most creative when we don't have many resources. Educators are some of the best at this. You won't have textbooks, you won't have pens and pencils, and yet every day educators are looking at ways to still show up and give students the best experience they can have in classrooms every day, despite burnout, despite the deportations and the policy rollbacks that impact funding. This freedom dreaming space opens a space to reimagine schools as a place of healing and belonging. And so, what I always say is, if all the money was there, what would your practice look like? And how can we begin to infuse parts of that dream of what your practice would look like if it was fully funded, if your students showed up every day on time, ready to go? How would you teach differently? How would you lead differently? And how can we bring some of what you would do differently into our now? Winimo, would you like to share anything on that?
I think that what I guess I want to remind people of this is like, this is a brand new practice. This is for a lot of people, right? It's countercultural sometimes. The first time when we're holding freedom dreaming space for people, it's hard to remove those bounds that Crystal just mentioned. Like, it's hard to remove them, but we don't have the funding, right? But we don't have the time. But kids aren't showing up. But kids need this. But ICE is knocking on our doors. But like all the buts are there, and those do exist. And then I tried to remind people that the reality that we're living in was full of butts like that too, right? But we're not allowed to go to those schools. But we're not supposed to go over there, right? But we're not allowed to exist. We're not allowed to be free. Our current existence was somebody else's dream. And so if we want to create a different existence for our young people, we owe it to them and ourselves and future generations to dream of a different world, starting with that exercise. And I think it doesn't feel like our worlds are so bound. My friend Dr. Jadi Mercedes talks about carceral logic, and that we kind of put these bounds on our thinking. And we're constantly thinking about the bounds within what we can do. And so one of the reasons we started with that grounding exercise in the beginning was to put you all in a space that was a bit more expansive. But we recognize that not everybody is there today, but it's with practice that we can get there. And so that's part of it, is like figuring out how to build in this practice. And so the way I've been describing freedom dreaming, because it helps me to concretize it into things I know, is that freedom dreaming in schools looks like strategic planning plus vision boarding. It's like a little bit creative, a little bit visual, still gets you to where you need to go. It's not this kind of like woo-woo pie in the sky thing forever. It does become an actionable plan that can be implemented and make real change happen in schools.
I love that example of vision boarding. Very
I have my vision board right here.
All right. So what will you experience? It is not a typical PD. We want to say that right off the bat. So when you think about spaces where you may have engaged in professional learning before, there's a lot of speaker, talking to you. This space is what I call adult summer camp. We have really designed this space to be fun and engaging. You're spending your summer, a day of your summer with us. And so we definitely want to invite you into a space that, as Winemo describes, feels expansive, that has room for reflection, for pause, for creativity and innovation, for you to build connection with other freedom dreamers like you who really want to see change in the classrooms and the schools that they touch every day. And so this space is designed for educators who believe that schools can be places of healing, equity, and joy. If that is you, then this is an opportunity for you. If you're someone who's still not convinced, I assure you that the way that we're engaging within this space will likely make you a believer by the end of it. And so I just want to point out what the experience will include. There are grounding practices that you'll engage in. Winema will also be leading some healing centered practices, exercises, as well as kind of giving you some tools on how you can create these spaces within your own teams. There will be workshops for hands-on exploration, practitioner wisdom. We've curated a group of practitioners who can give you insights from all angles on how to create schools that liberate for all types of identities. There are action labs, very hands-on, very physical. If you're a person who needs to get up out of your seat and engage in a little bit of play, there's some of that. And then, of course, some small group pods where you can learn with other educators. You look like you were just about to say something, Winona. Nope, you're muted.
No, I was just trying to answer one of the questions live and I was talking to myself, so you calm.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So before we leave you today, we used to have what I called a mosaic of freedom dreaming, because, and this is something that you'll get in engaging in the lab, is a lot of evidence for the effectiveness of radical imagination, particularly during times of crisis. Freedom dreaming is a tool that works. And what we've done at the Institute is really connected to the feelings of burnout by educators. You all have been on the front lines every day showing up for students, regardless of what is happening in the world around you, regardless of if you have had time to process the atrocities that are happening. In spite of fear, you still show up. And so we want to create a space that thanks you for all that you do every day and helps pump a little bit more of a lifeline in you, give you some nutrients to bring back into your classrooms and back into your teams before you get started within another school year. And so before we get to kind of like our closing, I just want to leave you with this quote from the book Freedom Dreams. I don't know that I named that it is based on a book. It's the book. Without new visions, we don't know what to build, right? Only what to knock down. We not only end up confused, rudderless, and cynical, but we forget that making a revolution is not a series of clever maneuvers and tactics, but a process that can and must transform us. And so the Innovation Lab is an opportunity for you to be able to build a process that not only transforms you, but the teams that you work on, the students that you serve, and therefore the system of education as a whole. We feel like if we can get a few more educators to dream with us, that we really can create transformation within schools and be able to bring healing to the populations that need it most. I'm always going to pause there for you one more before I click to the next one.
I think that needed some breath after it.
Mm-hmm. You should give me a number to count for when I'm giving.
At least 5. At least 5.
I feel like that was 7. I can guarantee you that at the lab, Winemo will bring the healing and I will bring the energy. I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. All right. So, the Summer Innovation Lab starts August 19th. It's just a couple of weeks away. I'm so excited about this because we have been dreaming of creating this space for educators for a little while. And it's great to see that we're piloting this summer to all of you. There is an in-person offering at NYU's Kimball Hall where we're going to gather together and engage. Or you can participate in our remote offering August 20th and 21st. It is 2 half days remote. So it's not an either or for the remote. You come both of those days virtual. This week only, to registrants who registered this week, we are gifting you a copy of Sean Ginwright's The 4 Pivots. This is a great book that is really, we should have took this picture. This is a great book that is really the core of our work at the Institute. Our freedom dreaming even came from this text initially. And so this one, if you want to know about the work that we do at the Institute for Healing and Belonging, Dr. Sean Ginwright's The 4 Pivots is really a foundational text to all of our work. And then we'll just keep building your library from there. We love books. But we'll be gifting this to each registrant that registers this week. We have a limited supply, so we want you to move fast because when they're gone, they are gone. And yeah, we're hoping to see you there.
I just wanted to note that for those of you that are in New York based, that the Summer Innovation Lab is CTLE eligible. That's only information that's not on either of the slides. And if you can't make either of those dates, we know that summer is almost over and folks have vacations and things planned, although freedom dreaming, on the beach would be nice on the 20th or 21st, right? So we understand that some folks might not be able to make this, but we are here all year round doing this work. So there will be other opportunities to engage with us. Our emails are on the last slide.
They're on the first one. I'll put them back here.
Okay. So our emails, my email address is wrong on here. So email Crystal 78, or it's 7805, not 8705.
Here, I'll
78.
type it in the chat.
Okay. So you can reach out to us. We'd love to support you. We'd love to talk about all things related to healing and belonging for young people and the adults that serve them and are really looking for educators, school leaders, counselors, folks who can be with us in this movement, particularly in this moment. So thank you so much for your time, for taking your afternoon, and for spending a little bit of time to dream with us.
We do have a question for you to ponder as you're exiting the space. Feel free to throw it into the chat. But what would it look like if our meetings, our classrooms, or our professional development spaces honored imagination as data, emotion as evidence, and story as theory?
Oof.
With these babies that are running this race. Thank you all so much for being with us today. Like we said, we just wanted to give a brief sneak peek into what the Innovation Lab is all about. It is a brand new concept. And so we know it's like a lot of people are like, we don't know what this is. What is freedom dreaming? And so we just wanted to make sure we made ourselves available to you to answer any questions that you may have and just give you a snapshot. If you have questions, we are still here. So feel free to put any questions you may have in the chat. Again, just for this week's registration, you'll get a free copy of the 4 pivots. Just want to make sure that you all know that ends on Friday. So if you're on the fence about it, trust us and join us either in person or in the remote format. And I
Thank
think that's
you.
all that I have. Go ahead.